Hi guys, this is my first time doing a voiceover, and today I'll be painting Hiyori holding a little bouquet of flowers. And this is the reference photo I'll be using. So I start off every painting by doing the grid method, which basically the grid method is just putting a grid both over the reference image and the sketch so you can keep the proportions consistent. So here I am just using a ruler to do a 4x4 grid. And here's the sketching process. And you can kind of see me using the grid as a sort of guideline. It's kind of outlining the seal right now. I'm just looking for where certain lines intersect the grid lines. And while I'm sketching, I just kind of want to preface this by saying this is not a very straightforward tutorial. I did do my best to break down all my steps in the process, so hopefully this is somewhat helpful. And here's the final sketch. I basically just broke down all the basic shapes and lines from the reference. And here I start on the painting process. I'm first going in with a really light blue for the background, just getting it all filled out. And if you look at the reference, you'll notice there's a lot more going on in the background. But for a lot of my paintings, I tend to simplify the background a lot, just so it's easier to focus on the main subject. Now I'm just going in to add the shadow under the seal and the flowers. I'm using a darker, more pale blue for these. And the reason I always do the backgrounds first for these pieces is because they take up the majority of the canvas usually. I can be kind of messy with the background because I'll be covering a lot of it up later, and it makes painting a lot faster. So now I'm starting with the underside of the seal. So again, just going in kind of with the light blue color, some purples in there. Just trying to get a base down for all the lightest parts of the seal. I also like to saturate my colors more than on the reference. It just makes everything look brighter and stand out a lot more. So again, just putting the lightest kind of pastel colors in places that are the lightest on the reference. And now I'm just going in to place some of the darkest colors on the reference. So again, you'll notice I'm using a very dark blue instead of a very dark gray. I think it makes the whole piece a lot more harmonic to use these very vibrant colors together. So now I'm just continuing to kind of place the dark blue in the darkest areas. I'm doing just a little bit of blending as I go, but not too much. And this stage is just kind of blocking in colors in general, just setting everything up to come back to later and add detail. Here I am roughly painting the flippers. I'm using a very dark blue on this flipper because it's in the shadow. I think it's easiest for me to paint the darkest and lightest parts of a painting first, and then later go in and add the midtones. It creates a really nice contrast and makes sure you aren't using values that are too close to each other. So here I'm starting to just blend things out a little bit and add in some of those midtones. I like to keep kind of like a painterly style so I don't overblend, which kind of allows you to see the brush strokes in the painting. So now I'm going in on the very darkest parts of the piece, like the eyes and the nostrils. I'm just using black here to define it. And now I'm moving on to blocking in the leaf. I'm just using a pale green to fill out the shape. And then I start in the shadow on the top of the leaf that's coming from the bouquet of flowers. I'm using a much darker green and just blocking in the shapes I see on the reference image. You might see that I'm kind of working on one thing at a time in this piece. If you kind of have multiple things going on, it's easier to separate the piece into different components. For example, in this one, I separated the seal, the leaf, and the flowers. So I'm kind of working on each individually. So here I'm starting on the flowers. I'm just kind of using some varying shades of blue to block in the shapes. I find floral things really difficult to paint just because of how complex they can be. But it's a lot easier when you try to break everything down into more simplified shapes. So you can see I'm going in with the darker blue to kind of get those shadows defined, and just filling in the lighter parts with the light blue. And now I kind of have everything all blocked in and ready for the next step of the painting process. So now I'm gonna go in and just blend things out a bit more, add in some more color, and just do a little bit of detail work. Here I'm kind of loosely enhancing the highlight with the light blue, darkening the eyelid a bit, and adding in this nice blue reflection from the flowers. Now looking at the reference, I placed some colors where I see some changes in hue, also just darkening up the snout around the nose. and kind of blending things by adding these mid-tones between the colors. I noticed this part of the forehead needed to be a bit darker, then I prematurely added some spots on the eyelid and did a little bit of blending in different areas. And then this is me just kind of going back in and cleaning everything up a bit more. Just enhancing the highlights with a really light blue. And now I'm finally going in to add all of the white spots on the forehead. Painting these spots on seals is always my favorite part of the process. It's so much fun just painting all these little shapes and watching the seal really come to life. I think it'll also add some interesting texture, as I like to leave a lot of my brush marks visible. And I did a lot of work on the flippers here, but a lot of it cut out. I'm very sorry. But moving on to the darker spots on the seal, I'm using a very dark blue and just adding little organic shapes everywhere. There's actually a light source coming in towards the bottom of the seal, so I gradually start to lighten the blue as the spots get closer to this area. And at this point, she's looking pretty good, so I'm going to move on to the leaf again. Doing the leaf details was not my favorite part of this piece, but I do think it added an interesting aspect to it. Now zooming in, you can see me working on some of the highlights on the leaf. And then after that, I will go in and work on some of the lines on the leaf, just really getting that texture in there. Because these are such little details, I don't worry about making them perfect since this is an organic shape anyways. And here's the leaf all done. Now I can move on to finishing up the flowers. So I do the stem in a dark green. Now I'm placing a very dark blue in some of the darkest parts of the bouquet. Now I'm going in with some of the lightest parts of the bouquet with a very light blue. This may look kind of complicated, but really just matching the colors to the reference and placing down shapes where you see them. And the rest of this process is essentially just me doing that. I'm just placing down various shades of blue and adding in some details, going back over with a lighter blue to add some more highlights, and with some finishing touches on the flowers, this painting is getting really close to being done. Now the only thing left to do is the very final touch, aka the whiskers. This is also my favorite part in the process. It's really satisfying and the seal looks so cute. And finally, with these little forehead whiskers, the piece is officially complete. I think she turned out absolutely adorable. And thank you so much for watching. I hope this tutorial was helpful in any way, shape, or form. As of posting this piece is currently for sale up in my shop, so please go check that out. And thank you so much again for your support. Until next time.